Have you ever poured your heart into caring for your peppers, only to end up with weak, leggy seedlings and a disappointing harvest? What if I told you that most of these failures come down to just a few common mistakes? Things almost everyone does, but that are actually very easy to fix? In this video, we're going through the entire pepper sowing process step by step. I'm going to reveal the most common pitfalls to avoid and share some professional tips that will help you grow the kind of peppers your neighbours will be talking about all summer. Make sure to stick around until the end, because I'm sharing a secret that could make or break your entire season. Let's dive in. Peppers, whether sweet or spicy, are the true stars of the summer garden. But they have one specific quirk. They need a lot of time. Since they're native to warmer climates, our short summers usually aren't long enough for them to go from seed to a full harvest outdoors. That's why starting your seeds indoors is absolutely essential. It's not just about saving money on store-bought starts. It's about giving your plants the best possible beginning, having total control over the process, and most importantly, growing those unique varieties you'll never find at a garden centre. Starting them right is the foundation of your entire harvest, and that's exactly why we're giving it our full attention today. First and foremost, timing is everything. This is where so many gardeners go wrong. In a burst of early season excitement, many people start sowing their seeds as early as January. But unless you're growing the hottest, slowest maturing varieties, that is simply too early. Here's why. During January and February, there is a serious lack of natural daylight. Your seedlings will sprout, but they'll spend all their energy stretching toward whatever thin light they can find. This makes them weak, spindly, and prone to disease. They'll also face a massive setback from transplant shock when it's finally time to move them outside. The ideal window for most peppers is from late February to mid-March. By starting then, your plants will benefit from more daylight right from the get-go. They'll grow more compact, much stronger, and far better prepared for life outdoors. Remember, the goal isn't to grow the tallest seedlings, it's to grow the strongest and healthiest ones. Next up is choosing the right seeds. You might think this is the easy part, but it's actually quite the opposite. First, always check the expiration date on the packet. Older seeds have a much lower germination rate, and you don't want all your hard work to go to waste. Then you'll need to decide between F1 hybrids and heirloom varieties. Hybrids are often more disease-resistant and offer a more consistent yield, but you can't save their seeds for the following year. With heirloom varieties, you can easily harvest your own seeds, and they'll stay true to the original plant. One last tip. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't just stick to your standard red peppers. Try growing white, purple, or even chocolate-coloured ones, and play around with different spice levels. That's where the true magic of home gardening really happens. So we've got our seeds. Now what? You could just plant them straight away, but a little bit of prep can make a world of difference. Many experienced gardeners swear by soaking their seeds before sowing. It helps soften that tough outer shell, giving the seeds a head start and speeding up germination by several days. 12 to 24 hours in warm water is usually all it takes. But here's a pro tip. Instead of plain water, try using a weak chamomile tea. Chamomile is a natural disinfectant with antifungal properties, which helps protect your young plants from disease right from the start. After soaking, gently pat the seeds dry on a paper towel. This makes them much easier to handle so they don't stick to your fingers while you're planting. It's a small extra step, but it really pays off with faster, more even growth across your garden. Your choice of substrate is truly a science. It's the foundation of your gardening success. Forget about digging up soil from your backyard or a molehill. It's far too heavy and often loaded with mold spores, pests and diseases. For sowing, you need a specialised mix that's light, airy and sterile. The simplest route is to buy a ready-made seed starting mix. If you'd rather blend your own, the ideal recipe is 1 part high-quality compost, 1 part peat moss, and 1 part perlite or sand for aeration. But whether you buy it or mix it, I highly recommend sterilising it first. Just spread the substrate on an old baking sheet, dampen it slightly, and put it in the oven at 90 degrees Celsius for about 30 minutes. This will kill off any mold spores that could cause damping off, giving your seedlings the best possible start. So what should we use for planting? There are plenty of options out there, each with its own pros and cons. The most common choices are standard plastic seed trays or cell packs. They're affordable, reusable, and do a great job of holding moisture. If you're looking to recycle, you can even use old yogurt cups or the bottoms of plastic bottles. But here's the golden rule. Whatever you use, it must have drainage holes. Without them, water will pool at the bottom, and your seeds will rot before they even have a chance to sprout. Another great option is peat pellets. Once you soak them, they swell up, and you can plant your seeds directly inside. This saves you the hassle of transplanting later, as the whole pellet goes straight into the soil. They are a bit pricier though. Whatever you decide to use, remember that cleanliness is key. Always give your containers a thorough wash with hot, soapy water before you get started to keep your seedlings healthy. Now, let's move on to the planting itself. Start by filling your container with your prepared, slightly damp potting mix. Don't fill it right to the brim. Leave about ½ inch of space at the top. Gently press the soil down. You can use a small flat board for this, to make sure the surface is even. This prevents the seeds from sinking too deep. Next, it's time to sow the seeds. Be careful not to sow them too thickly. If they're too crowded, the seedlings will compete for nutrients and grow weak, making them much harder to separate later on. It's best to sow them in rows, spaced about 1 inch apart. How deep should you plant them? For peppers, there's a simple rule of thumb. The planting depth should be roughly 2 to 3 times the size of the seed. That usually works out to about 1/4 to ½ inch deep. Once the seeds are in place, cover them with a thin layer of soil and lightly press down again to ensure good seed-to-soil contact. Now that the seeds are in, watering them correctly is the next critical step. You'll want to avoid using a heavy stream from a watering can, as this can wash the seeds away or push them too deep into the soil. Instead, use a spray bottle to gently and thoroughly mist the surface. This ensures even coverage without disturbing the soil structure. Another excellent option is bottom watering. Simply place your tray in a larger container of water and let the soil soak it up through the drainage holes. Once the surface looks damp, take it out. This provides perfectly uniform moisture throughout the soil. Your goal is to keep the medium consistently moist, like a wrung-out sponge, but never soaking wet. Now comes the time for patience and warmth. Peppers love the heat, and they need high temperatures to sprout successfully. The ideal soil temperature is between 25 and 28 degrees Celsius. At this temperature, most varieties will germinate within 7 to 10 days. If the temperature is lower, around 20 degrees for example, germination can take 3 weeks or longer, and some seeds might not sprout at all. So, how do you keep them warm enough? You could place your seed tray on a radiator, but be careful, as the soil will dry out much faster. A better option is to use a small seedling heat mat. To lock in warmth and humidity, cover your tray with a clear lid, plastic wrap, or glass to create a mini greenhouse. Just remember to lift the cover for a few minutes every day to let it breathe and prevent any mold from forming. The moment those first green shoots emerge, everything changes. At this stage, your plants no longer need intense heat. Instead, they crave as much light as possible. Remove any covers immediately and move your seedlings to the brightest spot available. It's also a good idea to lower the temperature slightly, ideally to between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius. Why is this so important? Because for young seedlings, the combination of high heat and low light is a recipe for disaster. They will start stretching desperately toward the light, causing the stems to become thin and weak, a process known as etiolation. These fragile plants are much more likely to break or succumb to disease. Unfortunately, during February and March, even a south-facing windowsill rarely provides enough natural light for healthy growth. The plants will lean toward the glass, and no matter how often you rotate them, they'll never grow truly strong and sturdy. So, how do you deal with a lack of light? The best way to take your growing to the next level is artificial lighting. You don't need to invest in expensive professional systems right away. A standard, cool white fluorescent lamp is a great starting point, but a dedicated LED grow light is even better. It's important to choose a full spectrum light that provides both the blue and red wavelengths essential for plant development. Place the lamp just 5 to 10 centimeters above the tops of your plants, and remember to raise it as they grow. Your seedlings will need about 14 to 16 hours of light per day. To make things easier, you can use a simple plug-in timer to automate the process. This small investment will pay off with strong, stocky, dark green seedlings that are far superior to the weak leggy ones typically grown on a windowsill. Once your seeds sprout, the first things you'll see are two small, oval leaves. These are the cotyledons or seed leaves. They act as a built-in food supply, fueling the plant through its first few days of life. However, these aren't the true leaves just yet. After a few more days, a new pair will emerge from the centre. These are the first true leaves, and you'll recognise them by their distinct, pepper-like shape. Seeing these leaves is a vital signal. It means the plant has successfully established its roots, used up its initial energy reserves, and is now creating its own fuel through photosynthesis. It's also a sign that the next big step, transplanting, is just around the corner. No, don't rush into it. Timing is everything, and you'll want to make sure you move forward at exactly the right moment. Pricking out is the process of moving young seedlings from a crowded tray into individual pots, giving them the space they need for their roots and foliage to thrive. So, when is the right time to start? Generally, you should wait until the first pair of true leaves has fully developed. Ignore the very first seed leaves that appear. If you transplant too early, the seedlings will be far too fragile. Wait too long, however, and their roots will become tangled, making it difficult to separate them without causing damage. The day before you plan to prick out, give the soil a light watering to help the plants slide out more easily. Using a small tool like a pencil or a craft stick, gently lift each seedling, keeping the root ball as intact as possible. Most importantly, always handle seedlings by their leaves, never the stem, as the stem is incredibly delicate and can be easily crushed. First, let's get our pots or containers ready. For this first transplant, a diameter of about 7 to 10 centimeters is perfect. It's absolutely essential that they have drainage holes at the bottom. Fill your pots with a potting mix. At this stage, it can be a bit more nutrient-rich than the one used for sowing. Use a pencil or your finger to make a hole in the centre and carefully tuck the seedling's root ball inside. You'll want to plant it slightly deeper than it was growing before. You can go right up to the cotyledons or the first baby leaves. Just like tomatoes, peppers are able to grow new adventitious roots along the buried part of the stem. This helps the plant develop a much stronger and more robust root system. Once it's in, gently press the soil down around the stem and give it a light, careful watering. What kind of soil should you use after transplanting your seedlings? At this stage, the mix doesn't need to be as fine or sterile as your initial seed starting medium. These young plants are growing stronger and now require more nutrients to fuel their development. A high-quality potting mix for vegetables is an excellent choice. For even better results, try mixing in a small amount of sifted compost. It provides a steady, natural supply of organic nutrients. Proper drainage is still essential, so if the soil feels a bit too heavy or dense, simply add some per leaf to fluff it up and improve aeration. Once they've been moved, keep your seedlings out of direct sunlight or intense grow lights for a day or two to help them recover from the stress of transplanting. After they've settled in, move them back to a warm, bright spot and watch them thrive. Watering seedlings in individual pots is a bit different from caring for fresh sowings. The biggest mistake you can make is keeping the soil constantly soaked. Roots need oxygen just as much as they need water. If they're always sitting in moisture, they can't breathe and will eventually rot, causing the plant to weaken and die. Instead, try a cycle approach to watering. Wait until the surface of the soil feels slightly dry to the touch before watering again. When you do, water thoroughly until it runs out of the drainage holes. Bottom watering is actually the best method. Simply place your pots in a tray of water and let them sit for about 15 to 20 minutes to soak up what they need. This encourages the roots to grow deep and strong while keeping the surface and the stems dry, which significantly lowers the risk of mold. When is the best time to start fertilizing? Most seed starting mixes contain little to no nutrients. Once you transplant your seedlings into a richer potting soil, they'll have enough food to last about 2 to 3 weeks. After that, it's time to start feeding, but proceed with caution. Young seedlings are incredibly sensitive, and too much fertilizer can easily burn their roots. Use a liquid fertilizer designed for vegetables, but dilute it to half or even a quarter of the recommended strength. Aim for a feeding schedule of once every week or 2. At this stage, a balanced fertilizer is key, or perhaps one slightly higher in phosphorus and potassium to support root development and future blooms. Just don't overdo it with the nitrogen. While it encourages lush green leaves, too much can actually weaken the plant and hinder fruit production. The biggest threat to young seedlings is a condition known as damping off, often referred to as black leg. It's caused by soil-borne fungi and strikes right at the base of the stem. The tissue turns black and thins out until the plant simply collapses and dies. The best defense is prevention. So, how do you protect your plants? First, as we mentioned earlier, always start with a sterile potting mix. Proper watering is also crucial. Whatever you do, don't overwater. A soggy soil surface is essentially a breeding ground for mold and fungi. Good air circulation is another lifesaver. If your seedlings are crowded or in an enclosed space, try running a small fan nearby from time to time. The moving air helps dry out the soil surface and actually strengthens the stems. Finally, as an extra precaution, you can occasionally water your seedlings with a weak horsetail tea. It's naturally high in silica, which reinforces the plant's cell walls from the inside out. Next is a step that many gardeners overlook, only to be surprised by the results later. It's called hardening off. Up until now, your seedlings have enjoyed a pampered life, warm, windless, and under soft, filtered light. If you suddenly move them straight into the garden, they'll go into total shock. The sun can scorch their leaves, the wind can snap their stems, and cold nights will bring their growth to a standstill. Hardening off is simply the process of gradually acclimating your plants to the outdoors. You should start this about 2 weeks before your planned transplant date. On the first day, set them outside for just an hour in a sheltered, shady spot. Each day after, increase their time outside and slowly introduce them to direct sunlight. Eventually, you can leave them out overnight, provided there's no threat of frost. It might seem like extra work, but this process is absolutely essential for a smooth transition to the open ground. A common question among gardeners is whether or not to pinch back pepper seedlings. Essentially, pinching means removing the main growing tip of a young plant. This encourages it to branch out and develop more lateral shoots, resulting in a bushier, more compact plant that can potentially produce a larger harvest. So when is it actually worth doing? Pinching is mainly recommended for varieties that tend to grow tall and leggy, such as certain chilies or longhorn pepper types. The best time to do this is when the seedling has about 6 to 8 true leaves. Simply snip off the top just above the 4th or 5th leaf. For standard bell peppers, which naturally branch out well on their own, pinching isn't necessary and might even slightly delay your first harvest. Ultimately, whether you should pinch or not depends on the specific variety you're growing. To wrap things up, let's go over the most critical mistakes you should avoid. First, don't start too early. Sowing in January often results in weak, leggy seedlings. It's better to wait a bit and get much heartier plants. Second, make sure they get enough light. A windowsill just isn't enough once they sprout. Investing in grow lights is honestly the best thing you can do for your peppers. Third, avoid overwatering. Peppers can't stand sitting in water. Their roots need to breathe. It's better to water less frequently, but more deeply. Fourth, never skip the hardening off process. Transplant shock is real and can stall your plant's growth for weeks. And finally, don't be afraid to experiment. Trying new varieties and techniques is the best part of gardening. If you steer clear of these common pitfalls, you're almost guaranteed a successful season and a massive pepper harvest. See, growing your own strong, healthy pepper seedlings isn't rocket science. It's all about sticking to a few basic rules and avoiding those common mistakes we covered today. The secret to success is simple. Get the timing right, use high-quality soil, provide enough warmth for germination, and then, most importantly, give them plenty of light and the right care as they grow. Just be patient and pay attention to your plants. They'll tell you exactly what they need. I'm confident that with these tips, you'll grow seedlings you can truly be proud of this year. Thanks for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming gardening adventures. Now, I have a question for you. What pepper varieties are you growing this year? And do you have a secret sowing tip of your own? Share it with us in the comments. I'm really looking forward to reading your stories. Wishing you a great growing season.